to JGF Amplified, the podcast where we engage educators and experts within the education system. I am Mathabo Tlali, and today, I've never come on this podcast alone. I have two special guests with me who are part of the Roadmap for Change activation, where we go to one of our partner universities and engage the PGCE experience and to get potential applicants, that could be you, to apply to be part of our fellowship. We have two special people, candidate fellows who are part of our PGCE program. We have
Shentin, Elson.
And
Anelisa, Hlongwane.
Shentin, how are you?
I'm okay, thanks, and you?
I'm good, thank you. Where are you from? What are you specializing in within your PGCE experience?
So I'm originally from Durban. I did my undergrad at Stellenbosch University, and my methods, my teaching subjects are English and history.
Anelisa?
So I'm originally from KZN, Durban. My teaching subjects are English and Advanced English.
So the purpose of this here podcast is to give you the opportunity to gain insight from candidate fellows who have gone through the application process and are now JGF candidate fellows, and you yourself can get particular hacks that can help you with your application process. Now, what makes you guys particularly unique is, and Anelisa over here, you applied as a non-Stellenbosch student. Which university were you at?
I was at UKZN Howard campus.
How did you come across JGF?
So I was on Facebook one day, just randomly scrolling, and I saw this ad pop up saying, want to become a teacher. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I clicked on it, and then I applied and followed the process, and here I am.
And here you are. And Shentin, you applied as Stellenbosch student already.
Yes.
And how did you come across JGF?
I actually have no idea. I think similarly, I was on Instagram or something like that, found the ad and kind of followed through with it as well. I always wanted to be a teacher, so yeah, it was right time, right place.
Right time and right place indeed. So you come across this ad, Anelisa. You click on it, you apply, you receive indaba that you are chosen to be part of our selection process. Where were you? How did the news find you? And how was the selection experience for you?
So it was very challenging, firstly, but it really opened me up to just discovering more about myself, stuff I didn't even know. It got me thinking about why I want to be a teacher, and it just affirmed everything that I'd come up with as to what type of teacher I want to be and so on. So when I found out that I was moving through to the next stage, I was at home in the lounge, and then the email came in, and I just told my parents, I got through. And they're like, yeah, through to what? They just didn't understand. But I was really excited, and then I tried to go on YouTube and everywhere to try to find out what the process is like. But there wasn't much information out there. So this is why I'm glad that we're doing this today, so someone who's watching this can actually know what to expect.
Yeah. So Shentin, a lot of people experience the scholarship selection process as one where you come and it's very interview style and you talk about yourself the whole time, prim, proper, pristine. What were your expectations of the JGF selection process, and what was the reality?
So I was expecting it to be, like you said, prim, proper, pristine like that. Not that the fellowship isn't. But I was expecting very structured questions, like, why do you want to be here? What do you have to add to us? Like the very typical questions. And didn't experience that. And I think it was a more interesting way because, as Anelisa said as well, it gets you to start thinking about why you actually want to be there. So the questions, as out there as they might seem, actually kind of help you do a bit of introspection as well.
Yeah. So from this is an open-ended question to anyone who'd want to answer this. How can someone prepare? Because I know someone is like, okay, listening to this and they're like, okay, cool, so they're not going to ask me why I want to be a teacher. They're not going to ask me what it is that I'm going to offer the South African education system. All these, I would say, generic or predictable questions. How does one prepare for our selection camp?
Sleep well. The day before, that's all I can say. No, there really isn't much you can do to prepare. Like Anelisa as well, I looked around online, trying to find anything I could about the types of questions, even how many stages there are in the process. Because every time I got a new email, I was like, another stage. I was like, when is the last stage coming? So yeah, there's no way to actually prepare apart from sleep well and get in the right headspace to sell yourself, I guess.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of what Shentin is saying, I went on Instagram and tried stalking anyone affiliated with JGF to DM them to ask, okay, what's happening? And I found Boiti on Instagram. I DM'd her, and she was like, no, you really can't prepare. You just have to be yourself, show up as your best self all the time.
Yeah.
And I really thought about that. And at selection camp, that's all I did. I was myself and showed up as the best version of myself the whole time. Just give it 100%, but be yourself.
Sure. And now you've applied for JGF. Now tell us what the application process to be within the PGCE program in the School of Education at Stellenbosch. You applied, Shentin, from the inside as a student already. How was that process for you?
So it was very easy for me, luckily. I mean, when you're already in the system, you already have a student number, an email address, everything kind of just works. You just went onto your, or here it's My Sun, it's your application or your general admin portal. You just click postgraduate, apply, new application, select the year, select PGCE, press send, and that's literally everything you do.
Do you think that there are elements that people can take for granted in terms of, for instance, timelines and dates and when you are already a Stellenbosch student?
Yeah, I think there's lots to take for granted when you're applying within any institution. So whether you're SU to SU, UCT to UCT, or whatever the case may be, having the admin building across the road from us right now. So if I had an issue with my application, I could just walk across the road, rather than having to try and email or make a phone call or whatever the case may be. So there's lots to take for granted when you're applying internally. You know the system. You can go and knock on doors really easily. You can find people who are in the program already and ask them for help, advice, whatever the case may be, which you don't really get when you're applying externally to a new institution.
Yeah. Anelisa, your journey was particularly different, in fact, entirely different from Shentin's. So you apply to SU. What happens then after you click send?
So my case was extremely different. I hadn't actually applied like the previous year, as you would when you want to study in an institution. So I missed their closing dates, got the scholarship, but didn't have a school.
Wild.
So that's the one thing I need to warn people about. Pay attention to closing dates. Don't be like me. Have faith you're going to get the scholarship and apply anyway. So what happened was I got the scholarship, then I started knocking on doors. And I really wanted to come to Stellenbosch because it's a really good university, like second best in South Africa, I think. So I reached out, knocked on doors, and they just saw the potential, and I was allowed in as a late applicant. So my journey compared to Shentin's was different. I had to knock on doors, and this is an entirely different province for me. So I came here, no family, no friends. Yeah, I had to fight.
You had
but
to.
I'm here.
Yeah. So for anyone who is not from this university and they want to come to SU, what are 2 tips that you'd like to share with them?
Firstly, reach out to anyone you find on social media that's in Stellenbosch. Ask a lot of questions about the culture, pay close attention to closing dates and so on. And also just be open-minded. I think the culture shock hits different when you get to Cape Town, especially Stellenbosch. So be open-minded and network, like get to know as many people as you can, because that's going to take you really far.
Yeah. And in terms of culture shocks, right, faculty by faculty, there are particular cultures inherent in them. Now you are in the PGCE program. How was your process of assimilating within the School of Education?
So for me, coming from Stellenbosch to Stellenbosch, I was expecting a very similar vibe, similar energy, similar everything in general, I guess. Obviously just different modules. and I didn't quite get that. So I came from the arts faculty, obviously, so art and social sciences. And in that faculty, you have a very small number of modules. They all just count for a lot of credits. So I was used to having to do like massive research projects, like 10, 15 page long essays regularly. And then to then come to the Faculty of Education, I now have 12 modules instead of 3. So it's a big like increase in the number of modules, but then everything weighs less. So rather than having to like work on one big project for the next 2 weeks, you have like 5 or 6 smaller projects instead. So you have to like try and time management in this faculty is so crucial, which makes sense. It is for a teacher as well. But to try and like manage all these different small modules without letting anything like fall by the wayside is quite difficult. So I think that's like the big one, to try and find those dates of everything that's due and make a calendar of it, because they will sneak up on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they still do.
Yeah. They do. And Anelisa, you are integrating not only into a department, not only into a university, but a town.
Yeah.
All at once.
Yeah.
How is that process? Because I can only imagine it's still 2023. We're still in the 4th month of the year.
Yeah.
How has that process of transitioning, assimilating into this here town?
So in the beginning, it was very difficult because I was on my own. As much as I knew the other candidate fellows, we just weren't close. And not having any friends or family, it was a bit difficult. I got here, everyone seems taller. People are either speaking Afrikaans or Xhosa, and I'm Zulu, so it was like... But what I did was I just started with the candidate fellows, reaching out, bugging them. Some of them would mize me. But
Not me.
The shade.
so what really helped me was just networking a lot. And I think JGF played a crucial role in helping me settle. I was referred to, I got like help, a therapist. My PO helped a lot as well. So I just, I reached out to people. I wasn't suffering alone. So even in terms of submissions and time management, I make sure that I lean on other people. It helps a lot. So it's been quite a journey, but I'm doing well now. I feel like, doing well.
Yeah. Shentin, the streets are talking. You hold various, I suppose, leadership positions within the university space. How has that been important to you in your journey as a JGF candidate fellow? And what advice do you have to someone who's like, you know what, I want to go to Stellenbosch. I want to integrate myself not only in student culture, but in the leadership space as well.
So I think, one of the things I'm lucky about coming from Stellenbosch, I was already in that system, in that culture of student governance. It is, I think, out of all the universities in South Africa, Stellenbosch kind of pushes it the hardest. So a lot of the things are very hands off from the university side, and everything is just left to students to lead themselves, much like how, the SA Schools Act kind of intends for things to get done in high schools as well. So I think that does help that the culture already exists. I'm not sure about other universities quite as much. What I will say is that it's a lot of burden in terms of your time. So your PGCE, again, you have somewhere between 10 and 13 modules, plus the extracurricular stuff you have from the fellowship as well. Not a lot of it, but it does kind of build up as well. And if you're now adding extra things on top of that, like student leadership, it really you have to be really like up it with your planning of your time, because if you're bouncing back and forth between meetings and classes and doing your program officer check-in sessions, it's all over the place. Really beneficial. I would definitely recommend it if your university does have it, and even if it doesn't, or if you're coming to a university where you haven't been there before, just become like a class rep or something, or there are ways to get involved. And I think it does also help you going into the classroom. If you've had that experience of being in some version of student leadership, it's really easy to then kind of transition into the classroom as the leader of a classroom, as a teacher. So I'd recommend it. I think it really helped me become who I am now. I am eternally thankful to this university for my pathway I've been given, and I would really recommend it.
Yeah, yeah. So cards on the table. We keep hearing from the both of you, time management, time management, time management. And I'm sure someone who's listening could think, you know what, these people have got it figured out. How have you managed your time? And please do not feel pressurized to give us some, pristine 5-step system of how to manage your time. But really, on the day-to-day, how are you finding yourself accomplishing all these things that are equally important to you?
So, cards on the table. I don't have it figured out.
Yes.
I still struggle. My main problem was I used to procrastinate a lot. Like, I'd put things off till the last minute. I'd literally start doing work at like few hours before the submission portal closes. What helped me was I surrounded myself with people that are very strict in terms of their submissions and working hard. And I also got someone who holds me very accountable. If I tell this person, I'm thinking of going to the library tomorrow, he'll be like, what time? I'm like 6. At 5 minutes to 6, he'll be outside my gate, let's go. And you can't then just be like, oh no, I'm not going anymore because the person's there. So I think what has helped me is having someone who will hold me accountable to the things that I even just think about doing. And also just like networking helps a lot. It's taught me a lot. I'm not perfect at managing time. I still do procrastinate. But when I see other people doing work, I'm just like, okay, I need to do this too. So, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think anyone who says that they have it all figured out is lying. That's my personal opinion. Very overarching statement.
And these opinions are solely Shentin's and not that of the Jakes Kaval Fellowship.
Definitely. But yeah, I mean, I also struggle with time management. I had a project due at midnight last night that was submitted at about 10 minutes to midnight. So, yeah, I mean, if it's early, it's early. I mean, but I think, my recommendation would be to find people who are in the same module, same program as you, same teaching methods, and kind of use them because your deadlines are also their deadlines. So now you can work together, or at least work next to each other so you can kind of keep each other accountable. And yeah, I mean, I think study spaces is really important. So I don't study in my room at all because it's a really easy change from at your desk studying to on your bed watching Netflix. It happens before you know it.
Sure.
So go to the library or the bib in Stellenbosch's case, or go to one of the study centers or wherever it may be. And if everyone else around you is working, it might inspire you to work as well, hopefully. And yeah, I mean, I use my calendar app religiously. So it's constantly popping off with little things, class here, deadline here, and it looks chaotic, but if it makes sense to you, it makes sense to you. Just don't use the color red because it makes everything seem too important. So pick happy colors.
Happy colors is the recommendation for calendars. So speaking about JGF and the program itself, what it's offered you thus far, what have been the key takeaways of importance for you, Shentin, as a candidate fellow?
So I think the most important thing I've got from the fellowship so far was a little bag of chocolates and hot chocolate and biscuits, whatever, for the selection camp.
That's fair.
That was the best thing we've ever received. Outside of that, I mean, I think, as Anelisa said as well, the networking. So we all have the same parole officer, PO. Not what it stands for, don't worry.
Program officer.
So it's really helpful for us in Stellenbosch because we all kind of on the same calendar kind of thing. So when Amy wants to do our CS1, we're all in the same kind of week, so we can kind of keep each other accountable for that, which does help as well. And then, I mean, we have Samora as well, who came from Stellenbosch, which really helps as well, because he seems to know everybody in the country, maybe the universe, who knows. And he will find you places somehow, magically. So if you kind of you're stuck looking for a job or a school for practical observations, he is out there with every principal on WhatsApp, basically. It's fantastic. I think that's been the number one networking gateway, at least for me.
Yeah. Networking is a key takeaway. For you, Anelisa?
I think for myself, JGF has really given me a sense of community, a sense of belonging. I feel like I belong to something that's great and that keeps getting bigger. And that's really important. And also when you see the other people that came before us within the fellowship, and you see some of them are grade heads, some of them are lecturers, you get really inspired. You just want to do better. You want to achieve the best that you can achieve. Well, that's personally. I reach out to all those people, grade heads, whatnot. I reach out and I ask them, how did you do it? And then I try to just copy that. So not only has JJF given me a sense of community, a sense of belonging, it's also just inspired me more to be the best type of teacher, you know. So yeah.
So for those who are listening and watching at home, a program officer is an individual who's assigned to you for the duration of your stay in the fellowship. You work with them. They are your mentor. They are your coach. The first port of call in the organization, should you have any pertinent questions or any career choices that you are choosing to make, or if you just need someone to bounce off ideas on. They're not clinicians, psychologists in any shape or form. I'm speaking like I am contracting with a candidate fellow. This is literally what I say to my candidate fellows on my first consultation sessions. They are not psychologists, but you know, we've learned that community is an important element, but there is another level of depth when the community there's a nuance of accountability, and that's where your PO steps in. You have to see them 4 times a year, check in, bounce ideas off, and it's great when you get to the end of the year and you have someone to celebrate with. And there's a stark difference between the person that you were when you started and the person that you are at the end of the year. So we are here as representations of accountability and people to walk with you. So now we need to speak about an issue that looms when we address Stellenbosch as a town, as a community, what it means, who gets to integrate into the town better than others, and what have been the processes of finding yourself, you know, adjusting to the space. Have you found any personal challenges? I mean, you've been here 4 years, Shentin.
Yes.
What have been challenges, if any, when coming into the space?
So I think for me at least, starting in Stellenbosch in 2020, I mean, if you just ignore COVID, it's coming, but yeah. If you ignore the COVID situation, for me, my biggest challenge was language barrier as well. So I don't speak Afrikaans, I'm from Durban, so just a thing we don't do. So adjusting to Stellenbosch was quite difficult, I would say, because everywhere around you, at least back then, most of the buildings' names were still only written in Afrikaans. A lot of the information just came in Afrikaans only, and it kind of made it very difficult to integrate. The university has done a lot since then, obviously, to address and redress that situation. So now everything's a lot more in English now. I mean, buildings have been renamed, which is very beneficial. But I mean, as Anelisa told me a couple of days ago, she got lost the one time because some of the older building signs are still only, like, the directions are only in Afrikaans, and you just look at them confused. So I think, yeah, for me, language was the big one. Although I think now, and at least when future CFs come 2024 and onwards, it should hopefully not be an issue anymore, or a lot less of an issue.
Yeah. Anelisa?
Sure. Language, definitely. But also, as I said in the beginning, it's you need to have an open mind when you come here. There's so many situations that you could potentially find yourself in that could make it difficult for you to adjust to Stellenbosch, given, you know, the culture, the history. So in my personal capacity, there have been certain instances where you just feel like you suffer from imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You walk on campus and you feel like people are looking at you and they're like, oh, you don't belong here. What are you doing here? And well, for myself, I don't understand Afrikaans at all. I can say goeiemorgen, that's about it. But then there's Xhosa as well. And people seem to think Xhosa and Zulu, it's the same thing, but it's not. You can chill with people speaking in Xhosa and you will not understand anything. So it was really difficult for me to kind of put myself in circles where I actually felt like I belonged. So imposter syndrome is definitely one of the challenges that I faced. But after talking to my PO and going to therapy and even talking to lecturers here, they're very open to having those conversations. I did feel like, okay, I have every right to be here and I'm here to win.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking about winning, you have mentors, yes? Within the fellowship. How has it been like working with your mentor? And what have been your highlights within the mentorship program?
So in terms of mentors, well, in my case, it's been amazing. The advice I've been getting has been awesome. I'm able to sort of walk through the PGCE program with a bit more confidence than someone who's just walking in like blindly. We do get thrown in the deep end sometimes, but it's comforting to know that there's always someone I can reach out to and they can just be like, okay, relax, this is what you do. So it's like almost like a big sister type vibe. So it's been awesome. They've helped a lot.
And I think on that as well, just use the lecturers as well, because they're very open-minded, they're very keen to engage. I mean, you're now in postgrad, they're a lot more accessible, and they kind of, I'm not going to say they treat you with more respect, not that they don't in undergrad, but if you have a question, just ask the lecturer or your classmates as well. I mean, there's so many different ways to find information, and you're all in this together kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
And
High School
as-
Musical over here.
Oh, we all in this together. Oh my goodness, Shentin. Good people, we have come to the end of our podcast recording. Before we end, 2 things that you'd like to leave applicants who are watching and listening on various streaming sites. What are your words of encouragement, or what are 2 hacks that you have for them?
Hacks for the fellowship or
Hacks
PGC or everything?
Applying to be in the fellowship.
Okay. Kind of stealing a bit of Anelisa's ideas earlier as well. Time management, obviously, we've done a lot of talking about that. But just find those deadlines for the fellowship applications. Find the deadlines for your PGCE. There might be different deadlines for internal versus external applicants. If you're going somewhere like Stellenbosch or a small town, accommodation, even before you get accepted into the university, before you get accepted into the fellowship, look at the accommodation opportunities there. When you apply for your postgrad, apply for residence as well, because at least in Stellenbosch, it's incredibly expensive living privately. So I think, just kind of plan everything out. Plan for the best case scenario and it'll hopefully come true. If you wait until you get accepted and then wait, there'll be nothing left to kind of, you'll be so narrowed down in your options. So I think, keep your options open. Apply to all the universities. Like, apply to Funza Lushaka as well. Find other opportunities. If teaching really is the passion that you want to, or the career you want to go down, and it is your passion, don't kind of make the fellowship the be all and end all. Don't make it like the deciding factor. If you're really passionate about it, you'll find a way.
Yeah, yeah. Anelisa?
My piece of advice would be show up as your best self all the time. Just be yourself. The thing with JGF is they're not so strict on questioning, why do you think you're the best person for this or whatnot, but they can really see right through you. That's the one thing I saw. They'll see right through you. So show up as your best self all the time. Have confidence and reach out to people. Don't suffer in silence. Reach out to people. Find people, Instagram, wherever. Find people to talk to that will advise you on how they got to where they are. So
Good people. We laugh. We laughed. We sang. Shentin plagiarized Anelisa's ideas. But most of all, we hope that together we came and gave you information that you'll find useful on your journey in applying for the PGCE program in Stellenbosch. But most importantly, on our end, for you to get a better understanding of what it means to be in the application process for the Jakes Gerwel Fellowship and hopefully be a candidate fellow in the year 2024 going forward in this here fellowship. I say this all the time. Go to your favorite search engine. type in Jake's Gavel Fellowship, and there you will see an immaculate website, and you will also find links to our social media platforms, which are popping, which are within, and they are all filled with enough information to empower you on your application process. And you who doesn't get the opportunity to be part of the fellowship today, don't worry, there are other opportunities. What's also really important is you, a teacher in this here country, being part of our community of practice. So do stay in tune with us on all social media platforms. Betunani, dungu Mathabo Tlali, and I will see you on the other side of this. Bye.
Thank you.